Well, good afternoon. This is Micah Young with Micah Young Podcast. Thank you so much for being with us, and appreciate your involvement, your comments, and your suggestions. And if you like what you see or what you hear, if you'll just click like, or if you go to YouTube and subscribe, you'll get a notification anytime there's a new podcast that comes out. I want to remind you also that you can listen to it on Apple Podcast, where it's just the audio and not the video. But we just thank you so much for your involvement. Tonight, we're in North Texas. And if you've ever been in North Texas for any period of time, we can have some radical weather. And tonight, we're expecting storms. And so if you hear something in the background, rumbling, it may be thunder, it may be lightning, maybe a little rain. And it may move in before we get through with this today. But I did remember to turn the air conditioner off at the back of the room. I had a couple of people remind me of that, and I had completely forgotten about it. But tonight I remember to do that. So tonight I want to just kind of set the stage for something. And this is going to be short because it's basically an introduction to what we want to do in the next few podcasts. And that's about the issue of relationship. What an interesting and complex proposition relationships are. You've ever been in relationships, and all of us have at some level. They can be the most rewarding thing, or they can be the most complex thing, and rarely are they very simple. But there's nothing on earth between humans that can be more satisfying and produce more joy than being in a healthy relationship. By that I mean a relationship that's trusting, a relationship that's transparent, that's open, a relationship that's accepting and loving, and demonstrates a legitimate exchange of life between two people. There's nothing more rewarding than having a spouse or a friend or a family member or an acquaintance that you can completely be yourself around and not feel like you have to pretend to be someone else or to walk around on eggshells because you're afraid something's going to be out of whack or you're going to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. But how rewarding it is to just be yourself and not have to pretend to be anybody else to gain their approval and their acceptance. Relationship can be an unbelievably rewarding proposition. But as probably all of us know, relationships can be difficult. There's nothing on earth that can do more damage to the human soul than investing everything we have into a relationship, only to encounter dishonesty, betrayal, deception, abuse, selfishness, and manipulation. And soon, rather than being that relationship that's healthy, it becomes an atmosphere of fear, of anxiety, and grief. And you just can't wait to find a way to get out of it. There's nothing that tears at the fabric of a soul like a relationship that was once encouraging, or at least we had hopes of it being encouragement. I can't think of a marriage anywhere. I can't ever think of newlyweds ever going into a marriage relationship without hoping that relationship will be encouraging, hoping it will be a reciprocal where we can encourage one another. And pretty soon that's devastated. And instead of being a time where it's encouraging, it's now a toxic relationship, and it's filled with accusations and criticisms and judgmentalism. It can be a tough situation. And then what about the concept of having a healthy relationship with a loving Father God? How completely fulfilling it is to be in a relationship with a Father God where there is unconditional love, where you are confident and certain that no matter what you do, this Father God is going to love you, that it's going to be a place of safety in this relationship. He's not going to wake up some morning and just smack you around. There'll be joy, and there's freedom, and there's openness, and there's honesty where you can tell him anything. when you're frustrated or when you're angry or when you're hurt or when you're disappointment, and you can express anything to him. To be in a relationship with the Father where there is affection. For many of us, we don't know what that's like to experience affection from the Father, where there's complete acceptance. How rewarding it is to know a relationship with Father God, who knows everything about me and is delighted still. He knows everything about me, and it hadn't hurt his feelings. It hadn't offended him. He hadn't rejected me. He hasn't left the relationship. He knows everything about me and is still delighted to be in my presence. And he is still delighted that I be in his presence. What an awesome experience, where I know he wants to be with me and I know I want to be with him. How devastating when religion takes the place of relationship. And then it becomes burdensome, and it produces fear and guilt and shame. It produces despair. It produces self-righteousness and judgmentalism. How deceptive it is when we have been led to believe that God is completely unapproachable, that he's a taskmaster, that he's moody, that he's angry, and he can only be appeased through all these religious exercises and practices that you have to participate in. And truth of the matter is, he doesn't really want a relationship with the likes of us anyway. How deceptive that is. How disillusioned we become when we're taught that following all the rules, that obeying all the laws, that living by all of the principles, that by keeping all of the religious traditions, that it will result in a relationship with God. And we find out, having all of that as our purpose, we didn't accomplish that in doing all these things that we were told to do. Relationships. Man, they can be a messy proposition. For people to know all your stuff, for God to know all your stuff, and for you to know God knows all your stuff. It can be one of those deals where, I've never been taught about how to really have a relationship. And so it might propose the question, well, whose idea was this anyway? Whose idea was this to have relationships? Well, the next few podcasts, we want to address those kinds of things and speak to those things in terms of our relationships with God, in terms of our relationship with one another. And we might ask some questions like, well, what do relationships even mean to me? Have I even thought about that? Have I thought about what a relationship means to me? Have I examined what value I place on relationships? Do I really value relationships at all? Or is it just something that comes up and there it is? What is my criterion for a relationship? What do relationships mean to me? What should relationships mean to me? Why do I have relationships that I have with the people in my life? Why are those relationships there? What's the purpose of relationship? I've never had anybody tell me that. What the purpose of relationship is. What model do we have that can demonstrate to us what a healthy relationship is like? So you can see there's a lot we can cover. And the next few podcasts, we're going to cover some of these things specifically. My relationship with the Father, my relationships with one another, and how that works. And so I want to encourage you that as you think about these, and maybe between now and the next one, go to the Father and just ask him to begin to search our heart. I hope that you don't ever, after listening to any of these, I hope that you don't take it upon yourself to go looking through your own life. Because I can promise you, the enemy will take note of that. And he will give you all kinds of things, real and imagined. But with those, they'll bring condemnation and guilt and shame, a sense of inferiority. But if you'll go to the Father and say, Father, you show me what relationships. Maybe you've been deeply, deeply hurt in relationships, and you've got this wall around you, and you're saying, no more. I'm not having any more relationships. Ask the Father if that's healthy. Ask the Father if that's what he has for you. Is that what he meant for you when he brought you into this world, to get hurt and then just chalk it off? Ask the Father what he has for you in terms of relationship. And we'll begin to discuss some of this and share what the Lord has given us with it. And I pray that it blesses you. So God bless you, and thank you for listening in.